We first met Lisa O'Brien, who you saw there in the report more than 6 weeks ago. She joins us again tonight, this time live in studio to talk about how she's doing now. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us again tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Lisa, first off, are you still struggling physically from your battle with COVID-19? I mean, we talked to you 6 weeks ago. How are you feeling now?
So I just hit day 200 yesterday, and I have seen significant improvement over the last 6 weeks. I am still dealing with random tachycardia. It just depends on the day. And fatigue, post-exertional malaise. So if I overdo it, the next couple days I just have so much fatigue. Some days I can't even get out of bed because I just have no energy. I still suffer from shortness of breath on occasion, but I have seen significant improvements.
For those who don't know, like when I first interviewed you, can you help explain what tachycardia is?
Oh yes, sorry.
Okay.
Erratic heart rates. So my heart, well, tachycardia is high heart rate. So my heart rate, the highest I ever got was 221. But we also suffer from bradycardia, many of us, which is a really low heart rate. And so the lowest my heart rate ever got was 30.
Oh my gosh, so you've really had like a roller coaster with your heart rate.
Yes.
So what have doctors said? I mean, will the after effects that you're experiencing, will they ever go away?
There's no clear answer on that. Doctors are hopeful. In the beginning, we were dismissed a lot and told that we just had anxiety because our symptoms are all over the place. They're not just in one body system, and so it looks like anxiety, but it's not. Most of us are having these high heart rates just every time we stand up. I believe they call it orthostatic intolerance, and but now, in the last 6 weeks, we've got a lot more doctors on board. We've been in contact with a lot of doctors. We've got one that's helping to create a multidisciplinary clinic for us where there would be a bunch of different specialists in one place for us to go see.
Lisa, about 2 minutes before we have to go to break, when the pandemic first began, we saw that the group of people who were most affected were older people, right? People who were older than 45 and whatnot. What would you say to people who think, oh, this is an old person's illness. I'm young, I'll recover?
Right. The long-term COVID or long COVID does not discriminate. We've done patient-led research in our groups, and they're showing about 85% of us are in between the ages of 30 to 59. Many of us were very, very active before we got COVID. Some were running 10 miles a day, and now they can barely get out of bed. So it's, hitting younger people too.
Yeah, and you and I were just talking about a story that one of my colleagues did about a younger adult, right, that was experiencing symptoms, long-term symptoms from our long haulers. So this really shows that anybody can be hit hard by this. Can you tell me about the demographic of people who are in your COVID-19 long haulers group? I mean, are you seeing a wide variety or more between like that age bracket that you were talking about?
Yeah, most are in between that age bracket. We do have some parents in there who have kids that are having the longer term effects. I have a friend who's 12-year-old, was just diagnosed with inappropriate sinus tachycardia. She's not in Utah, but it is affecting younger kids too. And our group is made up of more women than men, but it's been thought that that could be because men don't typically seek out support groups online.
And that's what we're hoping to do with our conversation here, is to really get that out there so that people can find support, assistance through your group like you. Okay, Lisa, hold that thought. We have to go to a quick break. Welcome back. Earlier in the show, Lisa O'Brien, founder of the Utah COVID-19 Long Haulers Group, joined us to discuss her experience with long-term symptoms after recovering from COVID-19. We're going to pick up right where we left off. Lisa, how have these long-term symptoms impacted your life or disrupted your day-to-day routine?
So back in months 3 and 4, when I was having the really high heart rates, every time I would stand up, I had to start showering using a shower chair. I had to start having my kids drive me everywhere. Like I said, that's kind of calmed down a bit, but now this weekend, you know, I did a small home project on Saturday, and Sunday I was just so wiped out that I could barely get out of bed. I was just so fatigued. And so, yeah, I, you know, spend a lot of time at home and I don't go very many places.
I think people don't realize how this also impacts your mental and emotional health. I remember you were talking about some of the challenges you face when going to the doctors to find answers for these symptoms. Mm-hmm. It's still a new term for a lot of professionals. Can you talk about some of those challenges that you dealt with?
Yeah, and like I said, it's gotten a lot better. In fact, we just got to present to the U of U Project Echo webinar last week. A bunch of us to I think there was over 100 doctors, but before, yeah, we were getting dismissed, and a lot of us still are. One of the #1 questions in my group every week is, does anybody know a doctor that's familiar with the post-COVID symptoms? And there's many here in Utah that still don't even know the term long hauler, don't even know that we exist. So that's been really hard.
As an advocate and representative for these long haulers in the state of Utah, can you talk about how does it make you guys feel when you're not able to get answers from doctors about what you were experiencing, and what are some of the biggest fears that these individuals go through?
So a lot of us, I would say, sometimes we feel crazy when, you know, medical doctors aren't believing what you're going through. And for a lot of us, you know, it's not just medical professionals, it's also our friends and family and employers. And so you kind of start to doubt yourself. We feel lost, like where do we turn? You know, there's just no answers. And a lot of times, you know, it's terrifying. There were some times where I felt like I was going home to die because, you know, my body was doing such crazy stuff. My nervous system was so out of whack that I thought for sure I wasn't going to survive it.
I remember during my last interview with you, you were telling me that you were sleeping in your car, parked outside of the hospital, just because you didn't know when you would have to go back to the doctors. Now, I just want to mention that Dr. Dixie Harris that we interviewed before the commercial break, you were telling me that you guys think the world of her, think that she's great. So just wanted to throw it out there that not all doctors, right, are not believing these patients that are approaching them. Tell me about the online COVID-19 Long Haulers group. How did that shape your advocacy and the outreach that you're doing now?
So, like I said in my last interview 6 weeks ago, I started the group because I was having such a hard time getting people here to believe me. And I knew that in order to get people to believe me, I was going to have to find the others. And I also didn't want anybody to have to experience this the same way that I did. I almost feel an obligation going through it in the first wave to make sure that whoever follows this path has an easier path. And more answers. And so, you know, now we have 450 Utahns in our group now. We started it in June, but there's hundreds of thousands of us across the world that are going through this. But 450 in Utah, and we're, you know, reaching out to medical professionals every week. We've reached out to government officials, and we're just trying to get help.
And of course, anybody who's watching this segment, if you are someone who think that you might be a long hauler, look up, right, our story that we've done with Lisa. We have the link to her group there. They're more than happy to help you out and provide the support that you need. Lisa, we have about 30 seconds left. Last question for you.
Okay.
What do you want to see happen here in Utah for local COVID-19 long haulers?
Recognition first. We want to be recognized. Right now they're counting, lives lost, but we also need to count the lives changed. And realistically, like, we've kind of lost our lives too, because we're not living the lives that we used to live. We would love more research. We want to find out all the answers, like, why is this happening to a certain subset of people? What is happening to us? Does this ever get better? And rehabilitation, or clinics, more people on board to help us with the long haul symptoms and to learn about these symptoms and what it's doing to us.
And hopefully interview segments like this will help us do that. Lisa O'Brien, founder of the Utah COVID-19 Long Haulers Group, thank you for joining us again to continue this conversation. We're looking forward to the day when you can fully recover.
Thank you.